Introducing Minor Wisdom Quintet.
1, 2, a skidda-didda-doo.
Minor Wisdom.
This week on the podcast, I have Marion Castleberry. Marion has been somebody that quite a few people have actually told me I need to have on, and finally it took Billy Dragoo to convince me that, okay, if he says I'm supposed to have him on, then I'm supposed to have him on. So I reached out to Marion, and he responded relatively quickly on Facebook about coming onto the podcast, and it was a really fun interview, and it's one of those things, one of those people that I'm very grateful for allowing me to kind of, or trusting me to have them on the podcast, because, well, I don't think Marion is a huge podcaster. I've had a few people like that, and so they're walking into unfamiliar territory and trusting me to do something that they're not necessarily comfortable with. And of course, you wouldn't know that by listening to this podcast, that somebody's uncomfortable, maybe a handful of times. Not going to call anybody out, but if you've listened to every episode, you know. But anyway, I was very fortunate to have him on. I don't have a rant this week. I have nothing. I did discuss some things. I have some things on the horizon that I'm very excited about, not only school related, but also personally related. Have some things with thespians that I'm excited about. I just created a new Design Your Life project for my students that I'm very excited to implement for them, because once again, for another week, my school is going virtual. So I am home for another week, and hopefully that's it, because I've realized very quickly, and Kevin Ritchie can attest to this, because, well, it didn't work out so well with me and Stage Spot, even though I still love those guys and use them all the time, and I would highly recommend that you all too. That's not a Stage Spot, but I just like them. But anyway, I'm not a work from home kind of guy. I don't get very motivated here, so if anything, I get very bored and tired, and so I'm doing my best to keep myself very active, and I've started riding my bike again, which is really fun. I've really enjoyed that, but there are certain things that I just don't get very motivated at home. So my hope is to inspire myself through new things that I could assign my students, and things that I wouldn't normally do in person. However, one of the rules I've kind of made in my own head is if I'm going to create some curriculum for my kids or some projects for my kids, it needs to be stuff that I can do in years to come, that, once we go back face to face. Hoping we go back face to face next year. However, it is not looking good, at least through the fall. Might be still teaching from home and all that kind of stuff, or not from home, but having some kids that are at home learning, and we'll see how much regression they have and all that good stuff. I'm not too hopeful for it, but I'm going to keep my head up. Keep your head up. Make sure you guys follow me on the Twitters at Mr. Blake Minor. I've had some few people. I know more people listen to this are Facebookers, so feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. Just search my name, and I'm sure we have lots of friends in common, even though we may have never met, but that's just how small the world of theater education is. Hope you enjoyed this week's interview with Mr. Marion Castleberry from Baylor University.
My starting point would have to be a small country home farm in East Texas between Alba and Quitman, Highway 154, where I was born and raised. Actually, was born in Gilmer, but they moved me to that house as quickly as they could possibly do that. And I guess growing up, I was very, I was basically like any other kid, I guess, looking for a sense of identity and not knowing exactly how you're supposed to live in that crazy world. But my parents took me to church quite often, and it's at church that I began to develop my artistic tastes by singing and speaking and working with singers and choirs, and during those days there was opportunity for us to at churches to hire in people like the Statler brothers and others to come and sing on Sunday afternoons, and we would have what they called a singing. And so I was highly involved with that, and that's where I really kind of began. I learned to play the piano early on as a kid, had quit at about 14 and haven't picked it up since, unfortunately. But my singing kind of developed from there. And then my senior year, I moved to a different school, and a little woman by the name of Eva Nichols, who is long gone, but she was a sweetheart of about 5 foot tall, involved me in the one act play, and I'd never heard of theater before. And so I said, sure. I didn't know what I was getting into. So I was cast in the lead in a play called Lilium. And the play was put up in competition with the UIL one act play, in which we were very successful and went on to state. We didn't win the state contest that year, but there were really a lot of good shows during those periods of time. You know, a lot of people from like Meadows and places like that were competing every year and enjoying winning the contests and so on. But the reality got me involved in theater and in the UIL aspect of that and the one act play. And so when I had to choose something to do with the rest of my life, I decided to go to college at what was then East Texas State University, and now it's Texas A&M University Commerce. And I studied with a gentleman by the name of Curtis Pope, who is a legend and legendary director. It's there that I kind of really developed myself, and I was very fortunate. We were involved in the American College Theater Festival when I was a student there, and went to Washington, D.C. and performed at the Ford's Theater. And we were selected as one of a handful of schools who were able to perform their productions there. So that was a big part of my life, and it was I felt that I had gotten a calling that I really enjoyed, but something that was very useful to me. And I continued that. And strangely enough, one afternoon I was just sitting around my house and got a phone call from a lady in Winsboro, Texas, who needed a teacher at a high school in Winsboro. And I said, well, I don't have my teaching certificate, but I'd be glad to come and work with the kids. And so they hired me without a certificate or anything at that time. And I think I made $3,000 a year, something like that. It was not very much. But I enjoyed the process, and I enjoyed working with the kids. But that kind of got me on a life journey to teaching, which I have done since. And then I've been in various places, Winsboro being one, Sonora High School. I've been at junior college in Cisco, just all around. I taught at San Angelo State University. And of course, now I've been at Baylor and about to retire from Baylor for about 20 years now. So it kind of got me involved. When I got to Baylor, there was a push for faculty to do professional work as well. And I had done some earlier in my career, but we were able to create a festival here called the Horton Foot Festival. And Horton was a dear friend of mine and much missed in the community. But Horton made it possible for us to have all kinds of folks come into Waco and to Baylor and work with them. Really well-known actors and directors, and so that became a really big thing. And during this process, I asked Horton if I could direct one of his shows, and we did The Traveling Lady in New York City at the Ensemble Studio Theater. And from that led me to be hired by the ensemble to work with and develop new plays. And so I would go to New York in the summers and work with new plays and playwrights. And I would sometimes have writers go with me, and we would live in this area that once had been the home, kind of the country home of the group theater. And it was really kind of interesting. We used to have the rooms, the cafeteria, it was all there, the stage, everything was there where they would work. Seymour Hoffman also had his group there, and they would work during the summers. So it was kind of interesting, but one thing led to another, and I was still involved in theater, highly involved in theater, and all of my life. And so that's kind of how, and to make things short, that's kind of how I got involved in my journey. Has been long and prosperous, and probably undeserving, but it's been great for me. And I enjoyed getting to know all these folks professionally and academically as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the future holds. I will retire in a year and a half. I'm not sure if it'll include theater or what, but you know how that goes. You kind of follow what you feel you're called to do. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So what is it about university world that drew you to it compared to secondary theater, secondary education?
I'm not really sure what it was. I enjoyed the secondary education part. I didn't like the limitations of it.
Yeah.
I suppose is part of it. And when I started teaching college, university, I felt more at home.
Sure.
I guess everybody has their thing. I know Lynn Murray used to say, you shouldn't have quit high school. You should have continued to teach high school. That was after we'd gone to state with a play, and he, I think, appreciated what I was doing with him. But for some reason, and maybe it's a God thing, I'm not sure, but I found great satisfaction in teaching at the college and university level.
Right.
That I hadn't felt teaching in high school.
Right.
So,
did you, you sound like a very religious individual. Did you know back did you know back when you were, you mentioned that you were singing and such in church. Did you know then that you wanted to at least be a performer, or was that just something you enjoyed doing?
That was it. I mean, at the time I was just kind of having fun playing piano and singing, and strangely enough, I know you probably heard stories about people doing this, but I was paid to travel the countryside and bring what they used to call special music to the revivals and churches around Texas. My family my grandfather was a church planter, and I don't know, just, I've always had that connection with my faith. And over the years, it's grown as I've experienced life more and more, and it's important to me.
Yeah.
And I believe I really have had, been led to do these things, been called to do these things. Nothing. Some things are strange, and they happen in weird ways, like my New York work. I never thought I would ever do that.
Right.
And I think it was like a way of saying, well, you can and you're possible. But winning the Drama Desk Award was even more satisfying, because it kind of said, well, you're on equal par.
Yeah. And
your work is equally as good as the others that are here. And having met all those people and worked in those situations, I said, yeah, I think, I've been blessed. And I always thought of it that way.
So the Drama Desk mention leads me to a question, and this might be difficult to answer, and you could have multiple answers, and I'm okay with that. Do you have a proudest moment of your career? Do you have a moment that stands out as just being that moment that you were completely overwhelmed with excitement and
well, I just think working with Horton Foote, sitting by my side, working on a play and cutting the play and developing the play and then seeing it produced with him and the smile on his face. That's probably the greatest moments of my life.
Yeah.
Horton was a really important mentor to me, and of course everybody loved Horton and always wanted to do his work. And I first met him at a time when he was just kind of really getting known, when he was doing Tender Mercies and Triple Bountiful and the films. And then later on, I got to know him even better, and then he and I worked together, and it was a very meaningful part of my life. Although I still go out and judge from time to time, and I still hold my high school experiences very dearly. I have some really, really, really good former students that just make it worth it for me, So I think, but in terms of highlights, it would be having Horton sitting there working on a play, a 50-year-old play, and making it work. It was really great. And
would that be?
So I mean,
would that be the same type of feeling that you like? Have you had a "I can't believe I'm doing this" moment? Is that probably the same type?
Sure.
Of, yeah.
Well, I had first seen one of Horton's plays at Baby the Rain Must Fall when I was a kid. And for some reason, that thing just struck me as a beautiful piece of drama, and I didn't know anything about drama, but it really struck me for some reason. And then later on, I told Horton, I said, man, that play had meant a world to me, and I would like to direct it. And he said, okay. And so we went about getting a cast together, and it worked out, and it was a great moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a kind of I can't believe I'm doing this. And a lot of those instances for me was just, it's kind of like I used to tell people, I'm in the back seat and God's driving the car.
Yeah.
And I'm going wherever he's taking me. So that's how I felt about it, and I just felt blessed about it.
Why can't you be in the front seat? What's
Yeah, really. I could drive it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you could help out. Yeah. Navigate. So is there?
They have great. I know that you're really more into the secondary part of theater education. I do have great respect.
Yeah, I mean, personally speaking, I was going to go back until the coronavirus hit. I had been accepted into a second master's program with the intention of teaching theater in the college level. So, selfishly, I want to be in the university setting or community college setting. So and it's not about the people listening to this. It's all about me and you. So that's right. They can just listen, but I'm sure they have their opinions too, right? Yeah. Right. So selfishly, plus, and I mentioned earlier about knowing Bob Singleton or being kind of raised and coached by Bob Singleton.
Right.
We did not do one act plays. So I don't have that same, one act play passion that a lot of teachers have that were raised in that world in the state of Texas. So I totally understand the importance of it and the reasoning behind it. But personally, as a director on my campus, I push the musical, I push our fall show to be like the tip top thing, and then if we do well with one act play, which I have, I haven't gone to state, I've gone to state, but I was in the audience. I don't put a lot of merit with my resume on how I did as a one act play director, and nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah.
Well, I can honestly say that it is probably the most amazing kind of thing, the one act play, UIL one act play. And it would not be so if it had not been for Lynn Murray.
Right.
And it was smart enough to figure out that the state of Texas liked competition. And how do you involve the one act play into a competition? Well, you go back to the old Greeks and the way they did it. A little different, but that was the idea. And there's nothing else like it in the world. And you can go to any state, any place, and we would love to have that sort of thing, but it just can't be done. It's a one of a kind creature, and it's produced so many theater people, so many actors and directors. If you go to New York, it's almost like going home to Texas. I mean, it was kind of crazy like that. But the production of the number of students who would actually went into the professional field is amazing. So
Yeah.
I have great admiration for it, and I have great admiration for those like Billy Dragoo who teach and do incredible work. That just floor me. I don't know how they do it, but they do.
Right.
And so that I admire that a great deal. So, but I'm more comfortable and have been more comfortable at the university level, and I don't know. That's me, and it's kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where do you feel your calling is going, and what should you be doing?
Right. So I've asked this of quite a few of the professor type folk, the university folk. I've had Jim Johnson on, Gary Cooper, a few people from UH, and then other areas as well, Sam Houston and such. Is there something?
Yeah, right.
And you came from the secondary world, mind you.
I did.
It was a few decades ago, but it's still the mindset is still very similar. But is there something that
Sure.
you feel needs to be focused on a little bit more in the secondary world in order to prepare students for college, or at least for the fine arts, or for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, or that kind of thing?
Well, I think over the years, this aspect I'm going to tell you has improved a great deal, and teachers are now being more and more educated. They come from backgrounds with MFAs, and they understand that there's more to life than the one act play contest, and to teach students that's the only place you can do theater, or the only place that theater can survive or can say anything is in the one act play contest, is just out and out wrong. Now you can teach a great deal through that contest. How to lose courageously, how to be courteous, how to get along with others. There are a number of really good issues that come out of the contest. I'm not downgrading that at all, but to teach only that, and to say that's all there is to the student's education or knowledge of theater is the contest, is really kind of a bad deal. I think there's more to it than that. And I think as time has gone on, more and more schools and more professors and teachers have become more educated of that. And they, I think, broaden their fields, kind of like you. Yeah. Or musicals. Actually, we could do musicals, or we can do other things that are very theatrical and will train you in various areas. This COVID thing, just last year, Baylor went through this process, and I'm overwhelmed by what they were able to do. Of filming shows and making them available to people online, and we did some productions outside. It was just, theater just survived.
Right.
And I think, the history of the theater needs to be taught, various things of that nature, which is really hard to do when you're just working on a one act play.
Right.
But in the smaller schools, that's probably the only time you have is time to work on those.
Right.
And you don't have time to do the other and to teach the full gamut of what theater really is. So
yeah,
that's kind of my only complaint. And the idea of winning, and it used to be this way many years ago, the idea of winning at all costs was just didn't rub me very well, and I didn't like the idea. And there were times I considered not judging anymore and or not being involved because I just didn't like that idea of winning at all costs. And, as you probably know this, a lot of the quality and the success of the program depends on the teacher of the individual, people like Bob and others.
Yeah.
Lou Adamar, there are just some that just because of the way they work and because of their dedication to it, they just do quality stuff. And one of my good friends, Larry Wisdom, has been doing it over and over and over for years, over 40 years of it. And so, people like that, you just kind of go, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's what it's really supposed to be. So.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's good. That was a good answer. That was not the answer that I've been given in the past. It was all about they need to learn how to schedule and write checks and all, all of that remedial stuff.
Yeah, well, no, I'm looking at it from a point of view of somebody that doesn't have to write the check every day.
Right.
And I can make these statements, but to me, it is teaching the theater, teaching what the theater is,
Right.
and how it could benefit and contribute to our society, because Lord knows we need it.
Yeah.
So, that's really important to me.
So, is there, and you mentioned that you're retiring, you said a year and a half. So I guess the end of 22 or the end of the school year of 22, is that right?
Yeah, May 2023
Oh, okay.
will be
23.
my last month here at Baylor.
Right. So you don't have to out yourself, but do you know what you want to do for your final year as far as a production is concerned, a production season?
I'm not sure I will do one.
Okay.
I did one last year. I did Antigone with a fellow professor.
Okay.
And we did a modern version of Antigone, which turned out really, really nice. And at that time, I think I caught something like COVID and was sick and in bed for like 5-6 weeks.
Right.
And anyway, I thought at that time, I'm not sure I want to direct anymore. And I haven't since.
Right.
And we've got some comparable directors here. So plus I work with the graduate students on all their productions. And we do 2 a year of those. So it keeps me
right
and keeps everybody hopping, so to
right.
speak. So
is there a show that you weren't able to do on the high school level that you wanted to do, but you knew that it was probably too heavy, that you ended up doing either at San Angelo or Angelo? Was it Angelo State you were?
Angelo State,
Yeah.
I was there for a couple of years.
Yeah. So, but is there one that
a show that I would like to have done?
Or a show that you wanted to do on the high school level that you did end up doing at the university level, but it might have been too heavy for high school, the community or whatever that might be?
I just know there's one show that I would like to do, and if someone were to pay me to do it,
Okay.
I would.
All right.
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
The best production of it that I know was a friend of mine who did it with Horton Foote, and they did it together. Michael Wilson, do you know that name?
I don't know. No.
He's a professional director now. He was at the Alley for a number of years. But he and Horton were doing some shows, and they put together the final production.
Okay.
That I know of, and really, really good production. And I would love to have the opportunity to work on that show,
Right.
kind of as my final one. So I don't know, but I'm not sure I'll ever get to do it.
Yeah, there's. Have you seen there's a production of it that takes place in a courtroom? Have you like an actual? Yeah. And one of my former principals every year goes there and sees the performance. So
Really?
Yeah. So it's yeah.
Well, that would be fun to do.
Yeah.
We used to do that when I was at Commerce. We used to go to this courtroom in Clarksville, Texas, I believe it was, and we did Inherit the Wind, I believe, and which worked really well,
right,
in the courtroom.
right. Is there, and I mentioned to you that part of what keeps people interested in this podcast, the Billy Dragoo type. Is there a fact about Marion Castleberry that is kind of a guilty pleasure type thing? I can tell you one of Billy's, and he's said this publicly, or at least put it on social media, that he goes to Sonic every Sunday and gets himself a Diet Coke and listens to this podcast. He and his wife. Is there something that you do that is kind of a guilty pleasure? And if you watch like or not Real Housewives or something like that, then maybe that's it. But I watch
Andy Griffith.
You watch Andy Griffith, okay? Okay, all right.
I like the Andy Griffith show, the old one.
Yeah.
Oh, and I do like old TV shows because they're a little different than the more contemporary ones. Although I still like some of the ones that I watch.
Are you a crime guy or does
I
that not?
like crime.
Yeah.
I love Blue Bloods,
Okay.
for instance, and things like that. But yeah, I still hold on to some of the old shows. I
What?
think I don't want to see them go by the wayside.
Right. What is it?
So
Is it just nostalgia, or is there something about
I
it
think
that?
it is.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think it's nostalgia, and I still think they hold some of the values of our lives that we need to remember.
Right.
How to get along with people.
Yeah.
And how to live. Strangely enough.
Right.
Um, and I've been through many decades, so I think that's probably what I'm searching for
Right.
is that, and maybe it is nostalgia, but I also don't look at life in a nostalgic way.
Right.
I'm pretty open to say, yeah, this is the way it is, and this is the way it's not. It
Right.
shouldn't be.
Right.
Um,
So
so,
do you? So
but
then,
yeah, Billy, I can understand him and Andy going to the.
yeah, yeah, they're big on that stuff. So
Yeah, they are. I love them. They're
yeah,
funny.
yeah, they are. That's a good pair. Especially even in the theater, as spouses and in the professional theater world. But is there? This might be a hard hitting question in a way, not a gotcha question, but one that you might have to think about is, do you think right now, because you just mentioned about how, like, for instance, Andy Griffith tells you how you should, be kind to people, and some of those
Yeah, right.
some of those 30-minute episodes, which really were 20 something minutes because of advertisements and
Yeah.
such, they had a lesson in there within just a few minutes, and people actually listened and paid attention. I mean, I'm not from the Andy Griffith era, but my era
Yeah.
is the late 80s, early 90s type of sitcoms, that same thing, the Full House
hmm
type of thing. Do you think something like that is, and it sounds stupid kind of and elementary, do you think something like that is needed right now that can help just kind of where we are as a country? And I don't want to get political or anything like that, but do you think that may be
Right.
one of
I
those,
understand that.
yeah, one of those things that we're missing? Because right now
Well,
we have reality TV, and that's the hot thing, but nothing that's kind of telling
yeah,
you,
and to me, I got worn out on reality TV real
yeah,
quick.
sure, same,
I mean, I think that's the beauty of theater and the beauty of art is that we can,
yeah,
tell a story that is enriching, that uplifts us, that transcends the world around us and
yeah,
all the negative things that are going on. And I wish somebody would realize that that's really the beauty of the theater and the beauty of television is you can enter into somebody's home and really on that given day and they're looking at the news, but they can switch over and go, yeah, I really like that. I'm going to laugh.
right,
One of my, I've just discovered this show because I didn't watch it when it first come on, but Everybody Loves Raymond
yeah,
is really a funny show that's really kind of in the same vein we're talking about,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people didn't like it because they were so mean to each other,
right,
but in the process of doing it, they always know that they're family and that they're getting something out of the process.
right,
Whereas now, I'm not sure you do.
right.
Um,
Well,
so but to answer your question, yeah,
yeah. That show, Everybody Loves Raymond, is a self-deprecating show. Like, the characters aren't necessarily self-deprecating, but the show itself makes fun of itself.
it makes fun of itself.
Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah.
And that's
So,
why you laugh. And
yeah.
that's kind of fun.
right. So,
But we're no longer able to do that,
no, no, you're not. You are definitely not allowed to do that. Yeah, you have to be very careful
No.
with that stuff.
You do.
Yeah. Is there, now I'm going to switch subjects, and I told you at the beginning, I said I'm going to take questions and it's based off of how my mind works, which it doesn't most of the time. But you mentioned retirement and kind of not knowing what where things might lead you now, and that's acceptable. I will take that as an answer. However, if I were to hand you a check for $10 million and said, enjoy this for your retirement, what do you think you would do? Or is there something, do you want to travel somewhere? Or is there something you'd still like to kind of check off the bucket list as far as seeing something, or even trying to meet somebody? Or is there anything like that money's not an option. You can do whatever you want. That you want to make sure that you get in your retired years, even though you're only 25 years old. But yeah.
I wish I were. I remember those days. Is there something I would really like to do?
Yeah.
Well, if I had $10 million, I would probably give most of it or a lot of it, donate it to people who really needed it.
Right,
You
sure.
know, I would certainly give to my church and to those people who are working that who need that. Maybe they're missionaries, or maybe they're trying to do work with the youth or whatever it is, but they need financial help. I think charity would be my first top of the line thing, and then of course saving enough to live on. But I wouldn't mind, seriously. Wouldn't mind opening up a theater with a really good group of people who believe in the same way I did.
Right.
You know, that what theater's about and why we do it, and because I kind of missed that.
Right.
When I was a youth growing up in the theater, I worked with some really good people. Jerry Biggs. Do you know who Jerry Biggs was?
I know the name. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Jerry and I were best of friends.
Yeah.
Jerry Biggs, Doug Hoppock.
Okay.
We were all working together, and we did shows together, and we were like one big happy family doing theater.
Yeah. Right.
And that was what theater was to us, and we learned from each other. We supported each other. We did shows together. I missed all that. I missed that ensemble. I missed that world. Now it's like, oh yeah, come on up and
Yeah.
we'll give you $3,000, direct this play, and go home when you get finished. And
Right.
there's no camaraderie really. Maybe in some instances, but for the most part, no.
Right.
It's just a job.
Right.
And I think it's more. It has to be more than that. Theater needs to be more than that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind using the money to open up a theater that could support that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what that means. Probably paying your actors
Yeah.
and your technical staff and making it worth their while. That'd be ideal.
Yeah.
I kind of think of some of the great directors throughout the world, and most of them wind up with an ensemble that they can work with all the time.
Yeah.
And they can develop their art and their craft. And I think that would be ideal. That would be a wonderful world for me.
Well, to give you some peace of mind, I guess, because I'm a part of a group. It's called Class Act Productions, and we've been together for about 15 years and put on shows, four or five shows a year. Now we don't fund it. It's up in the Woodlands, Texas, which if you know anything about that area, there's plenty of funding.
I do, yeah.
But the people involved, the core group, we're all very, very tight. We've, at weddings, at the births of our children, that kind of stuff. So, I wish that more of that existed. I agree with you on that.
I do too.
But just so you know, there are a couple. Good. Very few, but yeah,
Good.
Where we just kind of we get together and it's more. We're not getting together to do theater. We're getting together to be a family, and theater just happens to come out of it.
Well, hold on to that as long as you can, because I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I think one of the comments that's always been made by my students is because I've always tried to make my theater group, my classes, kind of like a family,
right.
But whenever they graduate and they leave and they start to work professionally or otherwise, they say, I really miss that. It was such a spiritual experience, and it was like working with a family. And to me, that was really more important than anything else, is they had that time to work together. But I also think it would be great if we could create that more often.
Right.
But if you've got it, hold on to that, because I think it's a wonderful thing.
So in your days back when you were doing the working with your buddies, pretty much with your friends doing theater, was there a show that you guys ended up pulling off that you thought there's no way we're going to be able to get this up and running and be successful? Do you remember one?
Well, I remember we did one in about 10 days
Yeah.
or less. It was fresh off the script, Neil Simon, chapter 2.
Okay.
And we were
Okay.
doing it at the dinner theater, and we had about 10 days. And I thought, there's no way in the world we can get this up and running. They can't
Yeah.
memorize the lines in that much time.
Yeah.
Well, Doug Hoppock and David Dawsey, and I don't know who all was in it, but they did. And it was a beautiful show. And, I'm always going, oh, they can do it. It's magic.
Yeah.
But I have since kind of gone, okay, they're going to need more time, and that's just part of it. I think that's the changes that have been made. With those guys, they didn't even think twice about it. Yeah, we'll get it going.
Yeah.
We'll do it. So
Yep.
same thing in New York. When I was working in New York, I had some issues with some of the actors that I worked with, and I wouldn't want to mention their names
Right.
because they're well known.
Right.
Yeah, you kind of think, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
If it's just a negative experience for you, then do something else.
Right.
So, but I don't know. I think they get caught up in it, and it's not as much fun as it once was.
Do you have, and I'll ask you a couple more questions and I'll get you out of here, but is there a name of a person that was just a pleasurable, positive experience, a celebrity, if you will, that you worked with in your New York days that you thought, man, I could work with this person every day for the rest of my life?
Goodness. No, I can't remember any that I would feel that way, but
Yeah.
I know there are some.
Yeah, sure.
Romulus Linney, for one, who I still to this day, I think of him often.
Yeah.
He was such a really an educator
Right.
and a great friend. Also, one of the guys named Scott Sowers, who was an actor who recently passed away. We hate losing him, but he was a terrific actor, and you've probably seen him in different things. He was just really, really quite a wonderful actor, and the kind of guy you'd want to work with over and over and over,
Yeah.
But those two guys come to my mind.
Okay.
And of course, Horton Foote.
Right.
And there's nobody like Horton Foote.
Right.
He was a father, a mentor, a friend, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good. And so I want to get you out of here on this one. You have been talking about retiring and such.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to keep bringing it up for you, but
That's
keep
okay.
keep
I
reminding
don't
you
mind.
of it. So you've had a lot of experience with a lot of a variety of type of student over your career. Is there a piece of advice that you wish you would have instilled on your students more often? Is there a piece of advice that you wish, in hindsight, man, I wish I could tell these students this XYZ, so that they leave me with this? I was a Dr. Berger child at University of Houston. And so he was constantly, like, it was almost a personal struggle for him to always make sure you left with something that made you better.
Right.
And most of the time it was a Shakespeare quote, as most people know Doc Berger.
Yeah.
But he was always challenging himself to make sure that we, the students, left his classroom or even, that semester having something
Right.
in our head that said, okay, this will make us a better person. And maybe it's something you do say all the time, but is there a piece that you like to instill upon the masses, if you will?
Well, if there's a thought I'd like to, want my students to leave with, and I have had some wonderful students, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they come to you, especially when they're starting out, and this is also true in the graduate program, which I've taught for the last 20 years. I mean, I know that they sometimes come to you with what we call stars in their eyes, and they think they're going to be, change the world, and they're going to go out and, instead of focusing on the art and focusing on the process of doing it in the theater, which is what I try really hard to get them to think is, don't think in terms of what this is going to do for you. It's kind of like John F. Kennedy, I guess, in
Yeah.
a way. But think of what you can do for the theater, really. What can you contribute to the world to make it a better place to live? Focus on doing the best you can possibly do at all times. And don't worry about what you're going to win or lose or be given, and don't think so much about making money, because you're not going to make a lot
Yeah.
doing theater. So those kind of ideas are what I try to instill in them and make sure that they, by the time they graduate, they know. And last year was really hard for
Yeah.
our graduates because of the COVID thing. And some of them have had to take jobs in libraries and whatever, you name it. They never complain.
Yeah.
They just do it and hope for the best, and maybe they'll get a job soon in the future. And we keep praying for that. And eventually it does come.
Yeah.
So they just have to be prepared to experience the world and take the world as it comes to them, as opposed to trying to say, well, I'm going to go and make it rich. And,
Yeah.
and this includes kids who are in the film business, whatever. We have some great kids from Baylor who really made it well. I'm thinking about Allison Tolson, who had her own TV shows. I mean, she's terrific. But she started off with she's going to work. She wanted to do the work. And that's what has happened to her. She's been very successful at it.
Minor